All right. Well, let's get ourselves started here. And just wanted to say welcome to everybody to our current webinar on the best practices in hiring fundraisers. We are going to take a deep dive into Claudia Looney's 7 Fs. And we are lucky to have Claudia, also known as Mom, join us today, and you're all in for a real treat. But before we start chatting with Claudia about hiring fundraisers, let me just take a minute to introduce you to myself and the 5 Tool Fundraiser. My name is Chris, and I'm a founder of the 5 Tool Fundraiser and author of a few books. You can see the 2 titles here on the screen, and as you can tell by our special guest, Claudia Looney, I come from a family of fundraisers. And actually, it's not just Mom that was a professional fundraiser. It was also Dad, Jim, who was a professional fundraiser as well. And I guess my passion for working in this space and raising money and helping organizations and our broader society achieve whatever it possibly can to make this world a better place comes from them. So it's nice to be with all of you. And what I would really love is for all of you to take a closer look at the 5 Tool Fundraiser website, which is accessible at www.5toolfundraiser.com. There is also a really cool YouTube channel that I would invite you to check out. The YouTube channel is the 5 Tool Fundraiser, and there you can access a bunch of shorts around the 365 fundraising truisms, but also you can access this webinar and many, many other webinars on topics that are extremely important to those of us in the fundraising field. So without any further ado, let me introduce you to Claudia Looney. For many, probably Claudia doesn't need any introduction because she's met so many, mentored so many, and known so many people in fundraising over the years. But for those of you that have not had the benefit or pleasure of meeting Claudia before, why don't you, Claudia, say hello and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I, of course, enjoy partnering with Chris at any turn. And I have loved being in fundraising. I've been in fundraising for more than 50 years at this point and have loved it. What I started off in youth work and navigated toward healthcare, started with the YWCA and Campfire, and then went to several healthcare organizations, including Saddleback Medical Center, a small community hospital, spent time at Northwestern Memorial as president of that large academic medical center. One of my favorite and last assignments before I became full-time consultant was with Children's Hospital Los Angeles. And not only did the mission sing to me, of course, but I was there at a great moment in time when a wonderful staff was assembled, a great board, a wonderful executive leadership, and we were able together join and raise over $1 billion, which was just a great fun highlight of my career. And since then, I've had the privilege of working with wonderful organizations that also make my heart sing, and I love that opportunity to be part of and partner with those organizations. So that's a little bit of my background.
So you made the transition from being in-house fundraiser to consultant. What's the current organization that you work with?
Currently I am the principal and managing partner of Covenant Philanthropic Solutions. We have been, of course, in this fundraising space since the 1970s, and more recently, in the last, since 2009, been consulting with just wonderful organizations, small, big, large, and doing campaigns, small and large, and working them coaching and mentoring space, working with assessments, and joining that partnership with them.
Great, great. Well, you mentioned in your introduction several times about great people. And so it leads me to kind of believe that in the career that you've had, you were an element of the success, but not the only person responsible for that success. And so tell me a little bit about, if you don't mind, the type of people that you've engaged with in the positions of leadership that you've had. Tell me a little bit about, for example, the different elements of staff and volunteer and how all the pieces kind of work together.
Right. Well, I think in any great fundraising operation, it is so exciting when you have a compelling case for support coupled with really wonderful external and internal leadership. Um, when the board is engaged, the board is committed and stepping up, and they're coupled with executive leadership that really embraces their role in the fundraising piece of the puzzle to deliver all these services. And then you create this wonderful staff team around you that is all, if you will, in the boat with the oars in the water at the same time. But they're all pulling together because they believe in the cause, they believe it's important, and they know that they depend on each other in order to be successful. And they want and cheer each other on to be successful. That's the kind of moment in time when it's really all coming together, and you can see the momentum, and the dollars come in when you're all together and the leadership is in place. It's about the people. And once you have that wonderful mission driving you and the people coalescing around that is a perfect moment in time that you can be successful in fundraising.
Mhm. Okay, so the importance of great people, the importance of a great team, especially those that you hire to do very specific roles on your team. Not all of them per se need to be fundraisers, obviously, because you have people that are providing a variety of responsibilities within a fundraising team, some of them frontline fundraisers, some of them working in other fundraising programs, some of them working in systems. Um, what have you learned over those 50 years? And I know we're going to be going into the 7Fs. So apart from the 7Fs, what was your experience over the decades in terms of hiring and building the best teams?
That's a great question, and it has changed. I can remember when I first started off when I was at Saddleback Medical Center in the 80s, we were all about church and state were separated. You do not talk about home life, for instance. You leave it at home and you don't talk about it in the office. And we didn't ask people anything about what was going on at home because that was not what you were hired to do. So it was very much about that entity. Today, we have to be sensitive to people and know that they have personal experiences that at times make them need to focus there so that they can be more productive when they're there at the office. We are much more sensitive to what the needs are of the individual employee than we were years ago. We also know that that you can't just hire someone anymore and expect them to do a good job without providing the environment where they can be successful. And that environment means being with people that you like. It means caring about everyone who's part of the team, regardless of what their role is, that we know that their role is important for us for everyone else to do the job that needs to be done. So regardless, you're a partnership. You together make a whole, and treating each other with respect is key. And that you trust these people will have your backside and be with you throughout the process of doing great things for the organization. I think that one of the troubling things is that in our business, people can change jobs easily. So we know that we're in a relationship business. If you're a frontline fundraiser and you have people that are leaving, it is troubling. And if you have people behind the scenes that are leaving, you have to teach them new systems. And then regardless of how big or small you're always looking at the importance of keeping good people and hiring good people. And I found over time, I was really focused on making certain that the culture fit was was important to in the initial steps of hiring. And so that's when I came to create these 7 steps, and these 7 F's, if you will, of focusing on who's going to be the best employee for the organization, for the fundraising team, and what does that fit look like, and making certain they understood what was expected of them and what the environment looked like. And it was really helpful for people after we'd already decided, okay, they have the skill set and they're committed to the mission. Then we wanted to know if were they a good fit.
A good fit. Yeah, that's interesting. And that's not one of the 7 F's, fit, which is interesting because you could add that and make it an 8th very easily. It strikes me that you have to be very careful about hiring anyone onto the team because, as they say, one bad apple, or you're only as strong as your weakest link. So it sounds like you put a lot of emphasis on every hire, not just the top hires per se, the ones that were at the top of the org chart, but all levels of the org chart, and recognizing that everyone needs to be a strong contributor to that culture. Is that right?
That's exactly right. And it was important that we we knew each other. We called them by name. We had a very large team of 100 people, but I knew everybody's name, and we were visible to each other and cared about them. That was important for everyone to know that we cared for them not only as what they brought to the table as an employee, but who they were as a person, and how they were, what were their interests and so forth. And we also paid a lot of attention to what I call water cooler talk. So when something was starting to fester, we nipped it right away. We would talk with people. We try to fix it before it festered and became part of more than 2 or 3 people talking about it. So we tried to address issues when they came up rather than just ignoring them and hoping they would go away, because they never did. They just got bigger, and then you spend an enormous amount of time fixing something and trying to get everybody back in the box and focused on the work that needed to be done.
Oh,
So
wait. So you're saying that you actually did have problems once in a while, that you didn't hire
perfect people.
perfection 100% of the time.
Yeah,
I
I
think that's
think.
important, right? That
Yeah.
to acknowledge that despite your best efforts to hire the best people, there were mistakes, right? Maybe, or there were people that just weren't the right fit. Is that right?
Oh yes, but also people are human. We make mistakes. We also are quick to point out what's wrong, and people are not totally perfect, and they're not totally bad. Everyone brings good things to the table, and the real trick is trying to put everybody in the right place where they can be highly productive and maximize their skill set and who they are. There was one gentleman at Children's Hospital that literally he was in corporate giving, he was in major gift work, he was in working on the Children's Miracle Network, and then we found his home in planned giving, and it just, but we had to find because he had a lot of good skill sets, but where he was initially wasn't the right fit for him, but he became very productive when we found the right role for him. And I think
Good.
that's part of being a good manager, is being on top of those kinds of sensitivities and making certain that you maximize the skill set. And I got to just say that I was accused of having a Velcro org chart at Children's Hospital, and that I'd take that Velcro org chart at home and I'd shake it every night and put people back in new boxes. And so that was the running joke around the office, but it turned to be effective so that people could be in the right place and
Hmm.
maximize
Hmm. Hmm.
bring to the table.
Well, that's good. So we're not necessarily talking about hiring at the moment, but that's okay because, once you hire a good person, you need to figure out a way to make them successful,
Mhm.
obviously. And it's not a stagnant environment. To your point, you're finding the best place for them. I can remember decades ago, you would be creating new sort of titles in order to give people the opportunities to ladder up a little more than just sort of going from, director to vice president.
Exactly.
When you grew to 100, you created 20 new, titles that would allow people to advance through the organization.
Right.
And so there was a lot of work, it sounds like, on your part to give people what they were looking for in a professional experience.
And growth.
Um, yeah, growth and job satisfaction, matching talents, and then putting people together who could get along and making it, fun. All of those things contributed, right? And that's sort of how you came about with the 7Fs, maybe? It was sort of the aggregation of all of these things you recognized that you needed in people. Is that right?
That's right. But it really started with a hiring process. And I started realizing that people didn't know what the expectation was, even though we had screened them for, commitment to the mission and screened them for their capabilities and skill sets. They got to the job and they hadn't seen the operation like we had. And I felt it was really important for me to meet the folks that were coming in and to share what the expectations were of anyone who was part of the team. And so from that, I developed the 7Fs. And so when they got to my office for the final interview, I shared with them the 7Fs, and they often referred to them throughout uh, their career and their time at Children's Hospital, and said, we went back to, as for instance, the focus. And I'll just jump in if that's all right, because I'll start talking about the very first
Yeah,
one.
now is as good a time as any. Please sort of tell us what focus means to you.
Okay. So when I would sit in front of the potential new hire, I would say, in our fundraising world, we run on details, and there are a ton of things that we can do that that will take time for us to do. We can sit and do emails. We can do. There's just so much to but we have to focus on doing the right things first, and we need people that are in the seat that know how to focus on the priorities, that they know that there's the list that you have to, the most important, the A list, and the next list, the second tier of things. You may never get to the third tier, so you have to be able to say, okay, is it more important that I send a birthday card today, or is it more important that I follow up with a donor that's expecting my call? We need to have people who can focus on doing the right things and 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 prioritize the work. Prioritizing is a key to being able to get the right things done that are important and challenging. So that's the first F. The first F is focused, being able to focus on the priorities and doing them in the right order.
Okay. Okay. So within focus, I'm hearing prioritization, and not being distracted. The way that I've always sort of internalized focus too is being able to set aside the time for a particular task, create sort of those times in your schedule where you're going to be able to accomplish certain tasks and not allowing all of these other things to come into play to take away your focus, right? So the sort of March Madness doesn't come in and, oh, I got to fill my bracket out. No, this is the 10 o'clock hour where I'm making my calls, where I'm
Mhm.
doing the stewardship. I'll preserve that other stuff that, would be fun
Right.
and that I need to do for later, right? There's just that intensity of focus on the tasks that are going to help raise money. Is that kind of the
Yeah,
way?
that's right. And there's just on every desk, there's just too much to do every day. That's a given.
That's
I
a
don't care
given.
what organization you're in, you have to be able to organize it and do the most important things first and get them done every day.
Okay, great, great. So I think I get focus. The next one, as I understand it, is fast.
Yeah.
So you have to what? You have to show that you're a good runner? No, what is that? What's fast mean to you? I'm joking, of course, but
You know,
what is fast?
we live in a fast world, and we can blame it on. Well, I go back and blame it first on faxes machines. They started it all with fax machines, but everybody started instantaneously expecting you to return their emails, to look at emails, and to respond to your emails. People expect you to return their calls. They expect fast turnaround. Our donors expect in this fast-paced world that they are going to get a response within the day for sure. And we have to be responsive to that. So I talk to people and say, if you're the kind of person that is going to read a magazine in between on a break, well, this may not be the right place for you because we are fast paced. We have to the world we live in. It's a reality that things move fast, and in an environment that we are in, we are fast paced. And there's a lot of things that are moving very fast in the world and in our world at our organizations. And so the expectation is that we will respond quickly to all those requests, to getting the reports out on time and so forth. And so if you're not somebody who can do things fast and well, and who doesn't pay attention to deadlines, you're not going to be a good fit for this organization. You will be.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah,
so know that this is a fast-paced organization, and if you're not that way, please don't join our group.
right, right. And it sounds like you're not apologetic about it.
It's what it is.
Which, yeah, it is what it is, which is interesting because I think there is this um, perception or thought pattern that seems to exist today that um, everyone needs to be acceptable in every kind of position, that there isn't a sort of DNA for certain positions that is unique to individuals, that everyone should be able to do every job, and we just, as fundraisers, we need to accommodate those that approach the work differently. What's your perspective on that philosophy that everyone, which is true, is unique, and they all bring their different talents and limitations to a job, and we just need to absolutely bend over backwards and accommodate those limitations? And it's sort of a leading question, I guess, but it's hard because it seems over the past decades we've lost the capacity to hire for the skills and the talents, and are more trying to just accommodate certain weaknesses that we know are not going to allow certain people to succeed in certain positions. How do you deal with that kind of
Yeah,
complexity of thought?
it's a great question, and that's really what is the kind of question that drove me to create these 7 Fs, because every environment is different, and some environments you can accommodate uh, people's styles, and the fit is good in an organization that is slower paced and doesn't have the intensity that we were experiencing at, I'm going to use Children's Hospital again because this is when I developed these. Um, we noticed the difference when we hired people from other people who were in higher education, for instance. There was a different way of approaching. You would expect to have alumni files on your desk that you could go through, and at Children's Hospital, we had to find donors who, most of our patients were 70% couldn't afford the care they were giving, and so we had to go search for our donors. Um, and so in our environment, being fast was important because we were a fast charging, fast moving culture. And so I think it is about, you have to match the personality of the individual with the culture. And that's why these 7Fs got developed.
Okay. Good. Good, 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 good. I love it. I love it. Okay, so um you do seem, or at least I've known you to be extremely friendly with everyone. I think that is certainly something you're known for. You know, you have incredibly soft elbows, I guess is a good expression. Um, you know, and I don't think it's the Irish in you necessarily that enables you to get along with everyone. That of course is a famous expression, you know. But I do think that there is something very interesting and unique about development professionals, or those that work in development. At least the most extraordinary ones that I've ever seen have the smoothest elbows. They are not the ones that are tangling, confrontational, easy to anger. You know, there's just something extraordinary about those best professionals. They kill you with kindness in a way. You know, is that
Totally.
interpretation correct? Tell me.
Well, that's an interesting. This friendly really is all about relationships. It's about having the right kind of relationships, and we have different relationships with a variety of different people within the fundraising world. We have a different relationship with board members and donors than we would have with each other as colleagues. We have networking relationships, and so this friendliness is about having a great network of colleagues to call upon for advice and counsel, so that we're not inwardly focused, we're actually outwardly focused and looking at what can we learn to bring to the table. What is that relationship we have with our colleagues? What is the relationship we have with our coworkers? What can we learn from them? How can we have the right kind of relationship with people who are at various levels within our fundraising organization and within our organization as a greater whole? We have a different relationship, and we needed people that could differentiate between how to have a different relationship with the different audiences that they were going to be exposed to. And so it was very important to me to share that they needed to understand that the relationships varied, but it was up to them to have and build those relationships, whether it was with a colleague, whether it was with the organizational leadership that we were dealing with, whether it was donors, whether it was board members, community at large. They needed to have that capability of developing the relationships, the right kind of relationships, and be the kind of person that everybody wanted to be around and that wanted to be part of what we were trying to accomplish.
Yeah, that's good. It strikes me that the those in the fundraising field, whether they're frontline fundraisers or you know, support staff, are constantly asking for help. You know, help me, partner with me, and you know, invest in this with me. You know, do this with me, and there's an element of creating goodwill
Mhm.
among all of these different people, so that they'll want to respond positively to you. They'll want to not turn their back. They'll want to, despite, you know, any difficulty that might exist in the request that you're making, say yes.
Mhm.
And it always strikes me how often people in development say yes to others, and in turn they seem to be able to get a yes from others when they make those special asks to do this or that. Is that consistent with your experience?
Absolutely, absolutely. And we do. It's about understanding how to get the yes and how to have the relationship to get the yes, because we're usually asking for assistance, we're asking for people to say yes to a gift, we're asking them to help us accomplish our mission. So that is we need to have those relationships that allow us to do that. And
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
I guess it seems so basic, but
It,
to be
it
a likable person, it just seems one of the most fundamental things necessary in fundraising to just be likable. You know, doesn't mean that you don't have a spine, I guess, but
Well, there's of course a difference between front-facing staff and non-front-facing staff, but but regardless, you need to be the kind of person that is a partner, a solid partner with those around you, that people want to be with you. They want to help you, even though you don't have that sparkle personality. You need to have the can-do personality that says, I'm in my quiet way, I'm going to help you do what needs to be done. And that we, because we all have different personalities and different styles. And so we need to be able to celebrate the different styles. And I don't want everybody to look like me or to act like me. That would be tiresome and not helpful. I need people who are different than me in the organization. I need people who do things that I don't do well around me. And so I want to make certain that my network of relationships includes people who have skill sets that I don't have, and that I appreciate them for what they bring to the table and how they fit and make everything whole together.
Great, great, great. Well, I understand that fundraising is a strange dynamic in many ways. There's so much going on, and that it doesn't often help to be rigid about certain things. That it requires someone that often has, as you call it, flexibility, the ability to adjust, to not be functionally fixed around certain things, to adapt. Sometimes I've likened it to being a chameleon of sorts, where your color might be one way with one type of person and a different color with another type of person. And what I mean by that is that you adjust your approach and personality to the audience, and that might seem offensive to some people, quite honestly. The fact that you can't be your authentic self with everybody in the same situation, and that seems so contrarian to the way that we talk today about showing up authentically. And I guess there's a substantial difference between being authentic and being the type of person that your donor or your fellow staff person or your supervisor or whoever sort of wants you to be, or being the type of collaborator that you need to be to get the work done most effectively. How do you think about this issue of flexibility? Am I thinking about it
Well,
all wrong?
yeah, you are. I,
Fine,
I,
fine.
I think that what I'm talking about, I want people to be authentic. I do not want them to not be authentic. That shows through that that you don't trust
Fair
people.
enough. Yeah, fair
You
enough.
have to be authentic in this world. But I think what we're talking about is adaptability
Okay.
and not authenticity. And but in this flexibility, in this particular issue, I'm talking about change. I'm talking about the ability to adapt to change. And I use the example. I said, okay, so we all have a group, and we all together, and we decide we're talking about how do you peel a banana, and we all have decided this is the best way to peel the banana. And then I will go home. I would explain this. I'll go home overnight, and I'll think, oh, I know a better way to peel the banana. And then I will come back and tell the group, I've got another idea on how we can peel this banana. And if you're the kind of person that says, can't she ever make up her mind? This may not be the right organization for you. But if you're the kind of person that says, that is a better idea. I'm glad. Let's talk about it. And I think we could do this and this, this as well. Then you're the right kind of person for this organization because you know that we are trying to be the best that we can be, and we're flexible because the one thing I can guarantee you is that change is going to happen. And if you're not a kind of person that can deal with change, then and you need the stability of doing the same thing every day, every time, this isn't the right environment for you. It's not going to be a happy place for you. So again, please don't join us if you're not flexible and can't adapt and be excited about change for the better.
That's good. I like that perspective, willing and excited to embrace change.
Mm-hmm.
It has nothing to do with authenticity, it has everything to do with just the capacity to adjust to all of these changing
Mm-hmm.
circumstances.
Right.
Well, how do you perceive that? I mean, how are you able to pull that out of a person, or the capacity to be adaptable? Is it just a simple question that you ask them during an interview, or how do you determine that? Do you ask them
Well,
to share times where they've been able to demonstrate their adaptability in circumstances?
well, by the time they came to me, I was mostly um, interviewing them for helping them to understand the culture that they were wanting to join. They had pretty much gone through those hoops of interviewing others and asking those kinds of questions. So this particular exercise with me was a final interview, and I wanted them to understand the environment. If they were going to say yes, I wanted them to know what environment they were coming into, and wanting them to say, do I believe in these 7Fs? Do I
Okay.
think these are right for me? So I wasn't querying them with specific questions at that point. I'm explaining this is what you can expect, and this is what you're going to be held accountable for in
Yeah.
our.
Well, I think that's an important distinction too for people that are hiring for any position or hiring fundraisers specifically or in fundraising. This idea that it's not always all about asking certain questions to understand if they are a particular characteristic or trait or have that, but giving them the expectations and saying to them, hey, I care about you. I want you to be successful. If you're going to take this job, please be aware that it requires extraordinary flexibility, for example. And
Mhm.
if you don't have that, you might find it very difficult to be a part of this organization, this team, in this
Yeah.
position. And that's an interesting distinction in the hiring process between those questions that help you surface certain characteristics and those sort of statements or questions that allow people to understand your thoughts on what might be necessary. And of course, you'd probably say, is that something that you think you're capable of doing? Are you flexible, or are you going to be able to be flexible, right? Before you'd make that offer, or before they would take the position.
Yeah, we try to figure out if they're going to be rigid or not, because rigid people just didn't work well in our environment.
Mm-hmm. Good, 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 good. All right. So I've seen before you say fundamentals, but here we're talking about fundamentals, one and the same, without the fundraising pun. So I'm intrigued by this because uh, like fundamentals sound like building blocks, or the basics. Is that what we're talking
Now,
about here?
right now, we're talking about the fundamentals of quality. This is sort of a quality control piece. The fundamental pieces of doing things right the first time. Because if you send out a letter you've misspelled their name, you put the wrong amount in the letter, for instance, using that as an example, it will come back and bite you. They will for sure call your president and CEO and say, these people can't shoot straight, they don't know how to do it right. Or they will tell 10 people that your organization does sloppy work, because they will tell 10 people how bad things were. So this was about paying attention to doing things right the first time, to paying attention to the fundamentals of fundraising, taking pride in the quality of work, and executing all the details to the best of your ability, and to take ownership for errors, but try to mitigate those, and pay attention to them at the get-go. So that was a commitment to the quality of work that we would produce.
I love it. And I'm hearing sort of two things here in the fundamentals arena, and maybe you can speak to both of them a little bit more. How do you evaluate their ability to not be sort of sloppy or make mistakes on the one hand, and how do you evaluate their capacity or their understanding of the basics of fundraising and their ability to apply those fundamentals as you would want them to, as you enter the organization? How do you think about, like, oh my gosh, I want them to understand the fundamentals. I don't want them to be sloppy. I want them to be effective in that regard, and I want to have the sense that they know fundraising. How do you think about that?
Yeah, that's great, because through all of these, I would ask questions back, and I would say, "So, if I talk to your former boss, what is he or she going to say about how well you do with the fundamentals of doing things right the first time? What would they say about the quality of your work? What are they going to tell me?" So I try to ask questions like that they can join in the conversation and say what they will say about, what will the boss say about them, and usually that starts a conversation. So I try to have a few questions with each one of these so that they can respond and tell me a little bit about how they are responding to this particular F.
Okay. All right. Good. Okay. So we're getting toward the end here, and we're now on 6. And I guess not surprising, there is a fundraising F in the midst of all of these 7 Fs. So tell me a little bit about what fundraising means to you in the context of hiring talented development professionals.
Well, this is a bigger one than just fundraising, but when all is said and done, as the top bullet says, we're all about funding. We have to raise money. So it's not about doing things like emails or going to meetings, which consumes so much of our time. It is about raising money. So we need to be sure that people understand that they are going to be evaluated on the amount of money that they raise and their goals. And we'll figure out how to do that together and be reasonable about it. But it's about raising money. But it's also about how we treat donors. This fundraising is about donor relations as well. It's about stewarding people in the right way. It's making certain that we are being treated as a donor. We treat them as we would want to be treated as a donor. So we put ourselves in the donor's shoes and think about it from their perspective. We also want this piece to reflect our commitment to ethics, to doing the right thing right the first time, but doing it in an ethical environment, and one that we are proud to say we are doing this for all the right reasons and in the right way. And so we want a commitment from anybody we hire that says we are going to be thinking of the donor and how we want the donor to feel after they have made their gift, as well as during the process of asking them for the gift.
That's good. That's great. And it's interesting because you talk about fundraising as being more broad than just generating the dollars. But as someone applies for a position in fundraising, I imagine that you're trying to take a pretty careful look at what they've generated through their other positions in the past, and trying to distinguish between sort of those things that they actually personally were responsible for versus those things that just sort of came into the organization while they were a part of the team versus those things that just came over the transom where that person got credit but didn't have anything really to do with the success. So was there an effort to try to really drill into those
Yeah.
productivity issues?
I would ask them what in the environment, in their prior environment, made their fundraising successful. How do they account for their success? What made that success happen? I also asked them what prevented them from being the best that they could be in the environment, from a fundraising standpoint, in the environment they were before. I would ask them, well, what wasn't working, and see what their answers are. And that got quite a bit to the ownership and responsibility for what they could and couldn't do within the organization, and how they viewed things. Um, it also, I also evaluated how they portrayed the other organization and whether they had the right sense of what was appropriate to say and not.
Okay. Okay. A little bit of a departure here before we hit our last F. um, is this. As you think about the process for hiring fundraisers, um, and the need to obviously get a resume and call references, but as you take fundraisers sort of through a journey of hiring and evaluating them as candidates, it strikes me that you are trying to understand the merits of uh, of their past and their potential for a particular position, rightfully so. But it also strikes me that you're really trying to be an attractive place for fundraisers. And I think this is incredibly unique in the world of fundraising. I think, I'm sure it's true of other positions as well, but in the fundraising field especially, it's amazing how you are not merely evaluating them, but helping them to evaluate you as a place to work and a person to be your supervisor or whatever. You're actually trying to convince them that this is the place for them. And so how do you balance both the need to evaluate them, but also how do you make the pitch? How do you sell them on your organization and you to join? Like, was there that dynamic that went through your mind?
Well, first of all, when you're sitting and talking about these 7 Fs, it's a conversation. And so you're getting to know each other's personality through the conversation and how they're reacting to as you're presenting these ideas. And since I don't have the PowerPoint in front of me, I'm just talking with them about situation and so forth. And I will say things like, we are with at our office and with people, and in that case, we didn't have remote at all. But I said, we are spending all of our time, most of our waking hours, with the people in the fundraising office, and these become friends. They become, we learn about families. We know that we are very much a part of an environment where we want to care about each other. And we care about each other because we are all committed to the same mission of the organization. That is what pulls us together. And if when things don't go right, if you remember the mission, you make the right decision. And I want people to understand that are working with me in that purpose, that it is about what we have come together to do, which is to help propel the mission forward for the organization. And that helps drive all the decisions. We start making the right decisions personally as well as for the organization. And so
Great.
I always go back to the mission and I say that to them. If this is not a place for self-centered people. I don't say that, but it is. The organization isn't a place for self-centered people. And so I try to assess that out.
Right, right. That is fascinating, the ability to not be driven by ego in the fundraising field, right? Finding people that are servant leaders, selfless, willing to put their donors, their colleagues, others out in front and to earn the credit or receive credit. Yeah. Well, what about fun? That's the last one of the 7 Fs.
Favorite, of course,
Is it
because
your favorite? Tell me.
yeah, well, we're all working way too hard not to enjoy what we're doing. So we have to have fun. We have to enjoy this great adventure that we're on. We have to take joy in the fact that we are moving the needle and making good things happen. And how often, how many people get a chance to do good while they're doing at work? And we get a chance to have fun and celebrate our successes. And we want to have fun at the office. We want to celebrate each other. We find time to pause and thank each other, to just enjoy this great opportunity we have to be together to create something really wonderful. And I want everybody to have fun and enjoy the job because we're working way too hard. Let's enjoy it and let's celebrate and let's make certain that our environment, it's not mindless frivolity. It is about enjoying the work and about celebrating successes and celebrating each other. When we wins as well as big wins.
Great, 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 great. No, it's so important. So important to be surrounded by people who are fun to be around, but wanting to have fun, take their work seriously, but also recognize that the more fun someone can have in their professional pursuits, the more inclined they are not to leave, to put more effort into to the work. So, before we kind of open up the floor to some questions or discussion for a few minutes, anything that you want to just share to round out the conversation, tie up any loose ends, anything that we might have missed? What more would you want to say on the topic of hiring the best fundraisers as it relates to your 7Fs?
Well, I think we want to, I want to be around people that inspire me. I want to be around people that are excited to come to work, who add value to the pieces that I can't do, that I don't know how to do, or I'm not good at. I want to be around people that I care about, both personally and professionally, and maybe their boss, but I also want to be a friend in the right way. I want to be somebody that cares about me. I care about them. And I think that when we're all together in that, when we care about each other, we'll be there for each other.
Very good. Very good. Yeah. When we care about each other, we'll be there for each other. Yep. Perfect. I love it. Well, let's just take a couple of minutes and invite our guests to ask any questions. If there are some, great, just come off mute and ask away. But if there are none, that's fine too, and we can conclude our session with gratitude to Claudia Looney for sharing all of these wonderful thoughts and ideas around hiring the best fundraisers. So please come off mute if you have a question. Speak now or forever hold your peace, right? Yeah.
And feel free to reach out to me as well. I'm at Claudia at covenantfirm.com. Be happy to talk with you at any time.
And likewise, if there are any questions and you'd like to reach out to me, you can do so at chris@fivetoolfundraiser.com. You can see the information on the screen. But once again, let me just reiterate my gratitude to Claudia Looney, also known as Mom, for spending this hour with us and exploring her 7Fs, some of the best practices to hiring fundraising professionals. And we look forward to our next topic coming up soon. I think it's all about prospect research. So stay tuned for more. But again, thank you all very much, and wishing you all the very best in the future with all of your hiring and your actual fundraising. So take care, everybody. Thanks so much.
Right.